And we're live.
All right, welcome to Book Club, everybody. It is December, and this we've been doing book club for we were just talking about that for a couple of years, but we've never done anything quite like this before. And not only do we have a fun lineup tonight, we've got Katie, my wife, she's putting the baby to bed, and then she's trying to join us because she's very excited about this. And our other special guest, I'll introduce properly in a minute, but it's Cynthia Freeman, who was my high school English teacher and a lover of books and just a wonderful person. And so it's good to see you, Cynthia. I'll introduce you in a minute, but thanks for joining. And thank y'all for joining us. So we're recording. Some of y'all are watching live, some of you are watching the recording, but you can, wherever you are, you can use the comments because Brandon, the remarkable Brandon over there is watching. And if you have questions, you got thoughts, you can put them there. We're going to use the chat, those that are on the Zoom link directly. But first, before we get going, or as we get going, let me just show you where I am. I hold on. I'm gonna do the announcements in a minute. So um I'm at the Simple Way right now, the community that we started on the north side of Philly. And not only do we have Orwell behind bars, we've got an entire little banned book selection here, which, Cynthia was letting me know that we might need to populate it a little bit. So we've got all kinds of books that people have been sending us. And we've been here for almost 30 years. We started the Simple Way in 1998. And there's all kinds of cool stuff. In fact, I'm just going to show you. I'm just going to go in here and show you the whole thing. Um, this is our little front room, which we is like where people can gather. We can show films, we can do poetry, and um, we have our cafe and reading club in here. And then um, in this room, this is our library. So it was a toy store this month, of course, naturally, but we are in the works of getting it back to normal. And it's Read, Resist, Reimagine, pretty much on theme for tonight, the Simple Way Library. Okay, now hold on.
Oh,
Everyone,
Shane,
yeah,
I think maybe are you still screen sharing?
no, I don't think so.
Oh, okay, great.
Um, but I do have a riddle, Brandon, and Cynthia and everyone. See if you can get this one. Every month there's a riddle. I am not alive, but I can grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. What am I? hmm I'll say, I got it. It took me a minute, but I got it. One more time. I'm not alive, but I can grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. What am I? Brandon, you got it? Cynthia?
I'm stumped.
Nope.
Okay. My first guess was a tire, which was not correct, but it was close. And then, so look at all this. This is what we've been building, y'all. So, I mean, there's a lot of things we do in this space, but reading is clutch, and we've been doing a lot of it. So, many of you might already support the Simple Way, but along with, I think of the Simple Way as kind of our local work, and Red Letter Christians is sort of our national work. So here I am. I'm going to get my Orwell from behind bars and bring him out. I've got to open it up there. So I'm ready, and I've got it all. It's going to be a great night. So let me go back and just tell you a few things coming up as we wait for Katie, and I'll introduce Cynthia in just a second here. So boom. So tonight, book club. And then if you have not seen, we now have an actual bookstore. So you can order books. We've got a bunch of good books there. We eventually want to keep building our online store so that the books that we feature in book club, you can grab them not from Amazon or something. We've also had an Amazon boycott because of the funding of some of the policies of this administration. And so we're launching the bookstore alongside of that, no coincidence. And for one more day, you can get 25% off all books, and we'll keep adding them, like I said. So, like, and if you're an author and you'd like to donate books for us to sell and all the money goes to support the nonprofit, let us know about that. But yeah, so you can get books one more day. You can also get, a lot of us have been lighting a candle, a red candle for Advent. Those are on there, which the wood from the candle holders is uh, these are made in Bethlehem where Christ was born. And it's not just about Christmas. A lot of us are going to be lighting candles throughout the year, praying for peace and in solidarity with our friends in the West Bank and in Gaza. So that's happening. We just got 30 more of those. So they're going to go online next week. And then monthly morning prayer. If you don't already join us every month, just know you could kick off every month this year together in prayer at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And this month is extra special because we got the whole crew. There's a few people photoshopped in there. I won't tell you which ones, but that's like our board and staff and the big RLC family. So a bunch of us will be together in 2 days here for morning prayer. So join us. We use common prayer, a compilation of prayers that we've curated and created. Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove and I host. So even if you're new to prayer, you're not really religious, but you're curious and interested, come on. So it's open to everybody. We do that every month for this year, January 1st and the first day of every month. This month, our book club book, you might have heard, we've got it on the website, but this is it, Martyrs to the Unspeakable. And Jim Douglas is a dear friend. He has studied the assassinations of JFK, Malcolm Martin, and Robert Kennedy. And it's a really groundbreaking book. So this is not a light read. This is pretty thick. It took him like 10 years to write. I think it's incredible. So that's it, y'all. And let me come back and uh, introduce our evening. So I am so excited. I kind of had this idea that wouldn't it be fun to have the person who originally introduced me, I mean, probably to George Orwell, but certainly to 1984, Cynthia Freeman. You're lucky in life if there's a couple of teachers um, that you remember for the rest of your life and that shape who you are. And certainly Miss Freeman, who I'm partly having her for book club because I can now call her Cynthia, but like when I was in high school, she, I mean, it wouldn't be an understatement to say part of why I have such a passion for writing and reading is because of you and the world that you opened up to me, and even just thinking, uh, challenging us to think for ourselves and also have good grammar as we do it. All that was wonderful, and so I'm so glad to have you here tonight, Cynthia. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. This is really fun and a real honor to be a part of this.
And we've stayed in touch over the years. It feels like a lot of times when I've written a book, you're one of the first folks to say, congrats, I'm cheering you on, and you've supported us in so many ways over the years. And so this is fun, but we never really done anything quite like this. So
No.
and I thought, it is a little intimidating, to have your high school English teacher as a guest for book club. But I thought I would, start by saying, why did you teach this book? And why was it so important? I mean, there's so many books. Why was this one that you thought this has got to be mandatory reading for my students?
Well, I would have to say, first of all, in reading it myself, before I taught it, I was realizing how many times I thought about it from day to day when things happen, the relevancy of it. And that was, way on back. And certainly nothing about the relevancy has changed during this period in which we live now. So there was that. And I just think that it is a book that requires you to certainly ponder what's going on around you. And in addition to that, Orwell was such an accomplished writer. Sometimes what he has to say almost overshadows the fact that he was um, the way he could use language
Mm.
and not only use it, but talk about it in the process. So I just think uh, for critical thinking, which is so important, in our world. Um, you really can't have a better book.
And you know, there's a lot of pressure on public school teachers. I went to Maryville High School in East Tennessee, and it's a public high school, and had great teachers like Cynthia. But there's a lot of pressure to not have books that might ruffle some feathers, and this is sure one of them. So, you know, my follow-up question was, would you teach it again if you were teaching right now?
I would definitely teach it again. I don't know how long I would be teaching, but no, I think probably I would still be able to teach this in the school system that you're familiar with and where I worked.
I mean,
I really
Tennessee
do.
is complicated too. It's a
Yeah,
you know, for all the things I love about Tennessee and the Smoky Mountains and the Southern hospitality and sweet tea. I mean, it's a very difficult place right now for a lot of people. And there's,
exactly.
you know, we had
Exactly.
a lot of the residue of racism that's still there in policies. And I mean,
It's very
but you know,
discouraging.
yeah, and there's incredible, courageous voices. You know, Brother Justin Jones is a dear friend, and some of your, you know, folks that have moral
Mhm.
courage right in the face of it all. So, did you have like much pushback when you taught this
No,
book? No.
no, not at all.
Mm. And in addition to this one, I was curious, like what other books you think are essential reading, and maybe some of those are the ones you know I had you in class for. But what are some maybe now you would add some newer books or some other authors? But I thought you know it'd be cool to hear what other books you would teach right now if you were teaching high school.
I would, if if I could get away with it, which hopefully I could, but you don't ever know. I would definitely teach Huckleberry Finn, and then
Mm,
I would teach James, the um, new, you might say, version of that particular book. It'd be great fun to have those two together.
mm,
Um, it's a very powerful book. Um, Also, I would teach Demon Copperhead
mm, mm,
um, by Barbara Kingsolver because I think it has so much to say about not just Appalachia where it is set, but also about the problems with addiction and so many issues, poverty. But she's an amazing storyteller and writer as well.
mm.
Um, so I guess adding the James and that would be two that come to mind first of all.
Awesome. So I'm going to throw a few questions to y'all that are listening, and not just the folks that have the direct Zoom link. You can do this like wherever you are, but what do you think is mandatory reading? And I'm going to ask you this question in a few different parts. So you can tell us what's on your must read list. You can also suggest that there are books that you think line up with the values of Red Letter Christians, you know, that we might want to read next year. We're kind of always thinking through book club. Do we want to do some classics? Do we want to do, we've done children's books, we've done sort of a little bit of everything. So throw some of them in the chats there as Cynthia and I continue to talk. And also tell us where you're joining from, like where you're tuning in from tonight. Um, okay, so as you're like thinking through the the world that we're in right now, Cynthia, what are just a few I mean, there's people that probably didn't do their homework. So what are just a few of the themes as we think about, I mean, you know, Big Brother and Hate Week and Thought Police and the revising of history? Like, what are some of the broad themes of 1984, but also, you know, Animal Farm? Orwell wrote
Mhm.
a lot of essays and other works too. So what are some of the things that you think, you know, 50, well, even more than that, right? Like 70 years later. So this was written in 1949, 1984 was right, and then he died a year later, 5 years after he wrote Animal Farm. So, but what are some of those themes that you think still really are provocative and hit right where we're at, you know, in the time that we're living in now?
Well, the first one, as I've sort of alluded to earlier, is language, the way language can be used to control. And when language is limited, if you recall from the book, the ducks speak, and the first things that come to mind, I think, in the present age would be the way language diminishes through texting, and then also the way language is used again as manipulation. Orwell, or Eric Blair, as he really was, worked for a while at the BBC dealing with propaganda. And it's just, all through the book. That, again, to me, the big theme is the use of language. And one question that I've always had in regard to this book is something that he plays with, and it's the idea that if you don't have a word, can you have a thought? And I think that's fascinating. And of course, he uses it with themes like freedom. And, if you don't know, if you're limited on the words that you can use, you don't have a word for that, then can it exist in your life? So that's always been one that was intriguing to me. Um, Also, of course, the way that he focuses on power and how power is obtained, and he deals with, from his own life, the influence of fascism and communism, and his disappointments. He fought in the Spanish War, and he was on the side of the communists, and then he got very disappointed when they ended up being just as power hungry as the fascists when they gained, and the way they split up, and different factions went after each other, and so all those things are happening in the book, um, in terms of power, and he ended up being what he called a democratic socialist, which sounds very familiar in 2025. It's a term we're using a lot.
Yeah. And, as you look at the ministries, the departments of the party, the kind of governing party, or the Ministry of Truth, which was all about the lies, and the Ministry of Peace, which was all about the war, and the Ministry of Love, which was torturing people to death. You think of the ways that language is being manipulated right now. I mean, it's interesting. It's kind of like, would you rather there be a euphemism for the Department of Defense, or Trump just to be like hitting it right in the face and saying we're changing this thing back to the Department of War because that's what it is and what we stand for. So it is interesting though, right? The idea that we try to, I mean, you even have like bombs called peacekeepers and guns called peacekeepers, and yet they're aimed to kill. So yeah, you want to say more about the way that language is? I mean, when I was reading that fresh, which I did do my homework and I read every bit of it, and there were so many things that struck me. Obviously the revising of history, and I mean, this administration going after the Smithsonian for making slavery look too bad, and all of that. But there's also like the question of language, like when it comes to our departments of war and departments of education and all that. So you want to say more about that?
Yeah, just his use of the euphemisms and the way things are hidden, in the language is really fascinating. And the phrases, like the one that comes to mind is the war is peace. And of course, that's the argument that is used still. I mean, that's why we have to have all of our armaments, because that's the only way you can keep peace, is if we have them, or if we don't have them and another country has them. And so there are a lot of things that you see in those slogans that you understand. I mean, you know what they mean. They're used all the time. And I think one of the things that um, this book is like all books have some autobiographical material because you write from what you know and where you are. But I think particularly his experiences as a civil servant, or actually as a policeman in Burma, um, right after he finished school, had a tremendous impact on him. And if people have not read the two terrific short stories, Hanging and Shooting an Elephant, they really he does a great job of explaining what that felt like to be someone in charge of someone else.
Mm, mm.
And the idea of you as the overseer, as the boss, as the person in charge, are as much a slave as the people that you are enslaving,
Mm,
even
mm,
if you don't realize it. And so I mean, he was there for 5 years, and I think that had to be the major influence on him. And then different disappointments with his time in the war, etc.
Hey,
Um,
let me just say to folks that are just joining in, the voice you've been listening to is Cynthia Freeman, who's a dear friend, and she's also happens to be my high school English teacher who introduced me to Orwell in 1984. So we're reading it fresh today, and we're waiting on Katie. She's putting the baby to bed, so she might join us when she's able to. But let me read this little passage. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street and building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And that process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. I know, of course, that the past is falsified, but it would be impossible for me to prove it.
Scary
And
stuff. Scary stuff.
yeah, and I mean, some of this is about how we remember history or don't remember or revise history, right? And as we think of our country, it seems like there's this sort of reckoning with how we tell history that is very real. I mean, from the Black Lives Matter movement to the monuments, Confederate monuments in Tennessee, where, you and I spent so much time where I was raised. We had a statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest, the founder of the KKK, in the Capitol until just a few years ago. And so these ways that we remember and the people that we romanticize are often on the wrong side of history, even though they have statues and monuments named after them sometimes. I mean, we had Obama trying to put um, Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill instead of Andrew Jackson. So this is all about history, right? And so
Yeah.
much of what we're reckoning with right now in our country is, I think of Dr. King saying, our history is like a infected, festering wound, and unless you kind of really reckon with it and you treat it and you repair and heal the harm of history, then it just continues to get more and more infected and to affect our whole democracy and our whole society, right?
Yeah. Ignorance is certainly bliss for those people who are in power.
Yeah,
Um,
and this is the mantra of 1984, right? Is war is peace, freedom is slavery,
mhm,
ignorance is strength.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Um, I think there are one of the really brilliant aspects of the book to me is the way that he deals with so many different truths. Um, for example, one of the ones that has always stuck with me is what he had to say about pain, which you wouldn't say is a major theme, but these little snippets of truths come through. The idea of you'll do anything to stop pain,
Mm,
um, torture, etc. Um, and also um, the ideas in terms of creating martyrs. And we've seen that's one thing that I've seen over and over. I said this book comes up all the time in my thoughts and things that I observe. The idea that you never want to make a martyr
Mm,
because then the cause that you're trying to destroy will go on.
mm, mm,
And so it's important that in the book that Winston really believes he can't, they have to change his belief system. They can't let him get away, or he becomes a martyr, and then what he believes carries down. And so you think about the people we consider martyrs
mm, mm.
and how that, really is important. It really is
Yeah.
true. So,
Yeah. So the other, I mean, there's so many things as I was reading this, the thought of people disappearing, that
mhm,
folks can be vaporized, as Orwell kind of,
yeah,
in 1984, that's the language that's used. And so not only is it the destruction of facts and the destruction of history and books,
mhm,
but there's also this destruction of people. And it is one of the things that's a little tricky as I was reading it because, Winston is in some ways kind of a protagonist, but he's also like a really broken dude and like pretty misogynistic
mhm,
and violent, has a lot of really rotten thoughts
mhm,
about hurting people and
mhm,
stuff, and I mean, I think that's part of the point, right? But part of the critique of Orwell is that not to be the spoiler, but it doesn't really have a great ending, and it's
mhm,
there's a lot of misogyny kind of all through the book.
mhm. Definitely, definitely. Um, he's really a fascinating protagonist if you think about all the different, what is his role? He's the protagonist,
Mm,
but, is what is his role thematically in terms of what is uh, Orwell trying to tell us by using this particular character?
mm,
And I think that what happens with him is that um, he has courage, and the pessimistic ending and the pessimism that is in the book is that going to help you?
mm.
Is there any way? It's a warning in the sense of big time warning. This isn't something has to be done. When this happens, it's too late. I mean, they've gone too far. Um, and if you had to take a sheet and you had to list everything from this book, just
Mm.
bullet points of what you see in certain areas of our world today, think how long that list would be. Things like the ways that they try to keep Winston and others, the characters, in shape, and so that with the exercise, so that they're not thinking. The whole business of don't think. How
Yeah.
many aspects of our life today are spent on keep not necessarily purposely, but that we spend to keep from thinking.
Mm,
There you can't even name them all,
mm.
but more than ever. And so, to shut that down is a big deal.
Yeah, it sure is. And yeah, for those of you that didn't do a fresh reading of 1984, I'm going to read you one of the kind of iconic lines of it. But the whole, well, I don't know, you can't really sum it up, but would you say this is dystopian
Yeah,
fiction, political fiction? Is
yeah,
that, and how much influence do you think this has on like a lot of the really popular films like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of similar genre books, right? Similar books, but I think of like Insurgent or the Divergent series, the like Hunger Games and there's just a lot of these films that have sort of it's not just an apocalyptic thing, but it's a commentary on the state of civilization and power and tyranny and authoritarianism, right? By the way,
Exactly.
why don't you put some of your favorite dystopian anti-authoritarianism films there? Okay, yeah, I'm seeing a few. Okay, we got a few. But so like this is sort of the precursor to some of that in ways, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Uh, and of course, Animal Farm,
Yeah.
exactly the same. Um, so it was definitely an obsession. Um, and I think we're the better for it if, it's read widely enough. It concerns me that probably it is not read very much anymore. Uh,
Yeah. So when you think of like banned books, I mean, there's some parts of this that uh, are really graphic. I mean, they're fairly graphic with violence and sex and things like that. I mean, maybe there's an age that is appropriate for some of these books, but like when you think of kind of where we're at in our culture, where it's sort of the canceling and the banning of anything that um, is political or controversial or progressive. Like, I mean, I even thought before this administration, I was talking with Brian Stevenson, who's, a dear friend and wrote Just Mercy. He's a lawyer, founder of EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative. And he told me that he was giving me a list of the books that are banned in prison. And in a lot of correctional facilities, you can't read like Michelle Alexander's New Jim Crow or Slavery by Another Name, some other theological books. I mean, I think that he was mentioning it because there's several places that were banning newer books, more recent books. But the wild thing is, a lot of those you could still read Hitler's, Mein Kampf. You could read a lot of like straight out white supremacist, racist books. So it was very selective in the what we were banning. So I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about like the difficulty of censorship and we're getting a little in the weeds, but and I think I'm seeing Katie come in here. But you got any thoughts on that? Like, I mean, is there an age limit? Are there books that you should skip a chapter of or what? Or do you just kind of like
No, I would not. I mean, if I'm going to do a book, I wouldn't skip a chapter or I wouldn't do an abridged version. I think, there are things that are age appropriate, but, the big question is, I think that you have to ask is, what are you afraid of if somebody reads that book? Um, and so many times, what you're afraid of is an unnecessary fear because, first of all, in the world we live in, they know a lot more than that one book is going to say.
Mm,
And if the book has, really serious themes that need to be considered, there isn't much that I would ever think should be banned from a high school library. Now, there are books that, I think wouldn't be appropriate to teach.
mm.
Just, I'm a librarian too, so you're barking up the wrong tree here. I'm not for banning books. Um, I just think it's very dangerous. It's a slippery slope, that's said over and over by people. Who's going to decide what you ban? How are you going to choose what you ban? Who are you going to listen to? Uh,
Mm.
if you have children, you don't want them to read a book, then don't have them get a book out of a library. Don't have them get that book. So that's my take, but I'm definitely biased.
Well, I'm seeing one of my other favorite educators coming in
Yes.
here. And the person you've been listening to, y'all, if you just joined, is Cynthia Freeman, who was my high school English teacher and introduced me to Orwell. And we also have another great educator and lover of books. And she's my wife as well, Katie Jo. Good to see you. Baby's asleep.
Yeah,
So
I think
you
so.
can talk a little quiet, right? I gave everybody the grand tour of the library, and I even told them that they could guess the December riddle if they wanted to.
Oh,
So you can put it in the
nice.
chat, y'all. Um, I'm not alive, but I can grow and I don't have lungs, but I need air. What is it? I
Mm.
s- okay. Do you want to say anything more about the library and our what you've been building and also the little banned book section before I'm trying to ease a little light start there. So you're jumping right in 1984, huh?
Oh no, that's fine. I mean, our banned book section is full of books that are either almost always on the banned list or they're challenged. There's a difference between a banned and a challenged book, but
Mm-hmm.
what that means essentially, if you haven't said this already, is that usually a outside group, they're the ones that get books banned the most. Like, um, I don't want to name any, but I'm sure you can think of some very often conservative groups that don't want certain books in public libraries. And so those are the books that are often challenged, like 1984. What else is behind you? Color
Well,
Purple.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, Scarlet Letter. You got the Great Gatsby and the To Kill a Mockingbird and
The Diary of Anne Frank is often banned.
yeah,
Um,
Maya Angelou, Cage Bird Sings, and then
yeah, and
what?
new books obviously come out and they get banned. Of course, books now, the content that's getting banned is if there's any sort of LGBTQIA content. Like
Yeah,
that's what's getting banned now. Um, Now, ironically, um, oh, what book is it? Is it Fahrenheit? What is that one called?
451. Yeah,
That one is banned,
Yeah.
and the quotes are because it talks about books getting banned, and that's why it's banned. So some of the reasons are just
Yeah.
unbelievable, but
Yeah.
they don't make any sense. But
and there are folks that want to erase Dr. King from some of the history books. They want to tell history differently. So we were talking about the um, getting back on theme a little bit, honey. But you can talk about whatever you want, of course.
no, but that's what he's doing in the book, isn't it? That's his job.
Yeah, and it's words too, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I look at these emails that have gone out to federal employees that you cannot use things like inclusion and equity. I mean, the words on the list are not just like LGBTQ words, but they're words like empowerment and reparations and it's just so anyway. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
banning words was a part of it too, not just the books, right? Controlling language. Um, so if you were teaching high school as Cynthia did, Katie, what are some of the books that you would teach in high school? Can I ask you
Oh,
that?
no, you can't. I'm not prepared for that.
Okay.
One, because I just have to be honest. I was a terrible, terrible student and almost did not make it out of high school. Part of the reason being I never completed my work, which happened for this. I didn't finish the book. And
Well,
I'm
you get the
hosting book
flu, hon.
club.
You got the flu, yeah.
Well, so I don't even know what happens at the end. I was never required to read this book growing up. I never was asked to read it. So
Well,
I
not
don't know
there's
what
other
happened.
people here that did not do their entire homework as well. And to be fully transparent, I did read Cliff Notes in some of Cynthia's classes in high school, but you had some, I believe, Cynthia, you had some pretty sophisticated ways of detecting if someone tried to cheat and read the Cliff Notes rather than the real book. Isn't that right?
Well, fortunately, there was no AI in those days,
Right.
so it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
easier than now.
Mm-hmm.
But Katie, as like we were talking about some of the themes and the I mean one of the things that's kind of interesting to see his take, especially given like some of the biographical stuff that Cynthia was talking about of like uh Eric Blair. I mean, like George Orwell's like real life of what he military service and his movement towards democratic socialism and stuff is like this idea that the hope lies in the proles, but there's a sort of patronizing posture of that, like from his protagonist kind of
Mm-hmm.
being a part of the party and hoping that, and there's um, the language of the prose will, Cynthia, maybe one of y'all can talk about it a little bit, but the kind of working class, the poor, the folks that are just struggling to survive, and that's part of what keeps them from being able to mobilize enough power to make social change. And even things like the lottery and stuff are ways that they're entertained and compromised and kind of held sort of in a holding pattern of power.
Yeah, how are you going to have a revolution if, you're trying to feed yourself?
Mm.
If you're trying to get enough food, if you're always hungry, if it's just a brilliant depiction of what happens.
Mm.
Uh, because, that's something that you hear a lot. Well, why don't people just rise up and do something about it?
Mm.
And I think he does a good job of sort of showing why. I love the lottery,
Mm-hmm.
the things they use. Um, he was definitely prophetic in many ways. I think it was one thing that was interesting about to mention Animal Farm for a minute was that when he first wrote that, he had trouble finding somebody to publish it, and it was due to the anti-communist message, and they didn't want to undermine the Britain's war effort because UK was allied with the USSR against Germany, so it was all tangled. Uh, so nobody wanted to touch the book at first.
Hmm.
Took a while to get a publisher.
Mm.
And that back and forth, throughout his life of, looking for the ideal government.
Mm.
What is it? He certainly showed what it was not, but he had a lot of disappointment in trying to find what it was, what the
Mm-hmm.
ideal would be.
You got
I
any
thought
thoughts
when
on
he
the
talked
pros, hon?
about,
Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do feel like there's two things I keep thinking about. One is how he talked about the capitalists with their top hats and their
Mm-hmm.
coats, and how you had to stop on the sidewalk and bow to them. But then how he said the biggest capitalist of all was the king
Mm-hmm.
because he owned all the land. And but that is actually true. Doesn't the monarchy
Yeah.
owns quite a bit of land
Yeah.
in England still today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of
So
the
that part was
things,
interesting to me. And I also wonder, does he evolve from he's not very, I would say he's not my favorite main character. Do you start to fall in love with him, or does he kind of just
No.
stay? You don't. Okay. And he doesn't have a very great view of women. Does that change?
He's that's a criticism of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes um, and I think you can explain it away if you want to or not. But yeah, that's often pointed out.
one
He's,
one of the lines is that is in there a few times, like a refrain, is who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past.
Mhm.
And kind
Yep.
of interesting to reflect on that, given the fact that like part of this is about telling. I mean, it's amazing the sort of amnesia or the way that how quickly we can forget. I mean, I think that's part of the point of the whole 1984 is that you really can control and revise and change the way people remember. I mean, even January 6th, that was happening, right? Like, we're not that far away. Like, we remember what happened. Like, don't try to tell us this was a peaceful protest. People died, right? And but even like, the war in Iraq with the like where you look back now and I think there's a whole generation that wasn't alive then, but they're going, wait, September 11th happened. And then the U.S. declared war in Iraq, which they had actually put Saddam Hussein in power and helped to give him the weapons that he used in the wars there with Iran. And then, now we know that the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia, and the U.S. is still selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. But it's just like, wow, like the way that people can manipulate media and messaging is real, right?
Absolutely. And very scary, and very scary. When you think about, certainly in my lifetime, the present age is the first time that I have really focused on what Orwell was talking about in terms of getting rid of the past, because almost every time I pick up a book, I learn something that I never knew because we were never taught it. It wasn't something that people talked about. One example that comes to mind is Tulsa. And how many years it took before, that was erased.
Mm.
And we've been doing it for a long time with a lot of things. You hear the victors get to tell the story.
Mm.
And that's certainly the way, you know, it has been. And so when you read this, you think, yeah, wow. You can just take those words out, or you can just say, we're not going to put that in the textbook, and we're not going to put that in the library.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, Katie, you got any other thoughts as you're coming into it? You got
I
any?
just want
Yeah.
you to tell me what happens at the
No,
end.
you obviously not. We can't do that.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. You can look at AI for that. No, I'm
it's
just
a
kidding.
real happy ending. He goes off
Yeah.
to the sunset,
I don't think that's true.
riding a horse,
Yeah.
waving goodbye. That's
Mm.
But another question that you all that are listening in on all the different platforms, you could give us if you were going to put a soundtrack to it, what are some of the songs, 1984 theme songs that you would put on a little album? I was because I was doing the thing, and I was thinking of the Redemption song, by Bob Marley and whatnot, or I think I had Jesse's song about the No Kings on there, but Katie, what other as you were reading, what other things are striking you as relevant to the era that we're living in?
I need to find my book. That would be helpful. I
I'll
don't know
read
where.
I'll read a little excerpt.
Yeah, read us an excerpt.
I mean, the that line, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Don't believe what you just saw, right? Ah, like I know there are lots of images of Donald Trump and Epstein, but
Oh,
they were not friends or whatever. It's just like unbelievable how we were supposed to not believe our eyes. But yeah.
the other interesting part too was when they were the guy who works on the dictionary, his
mhm,
friend. Did
mhm.
you already talk about this?
Mm,
No.
And how he's saying, well, first of all, they're creating a new kind of language, but then they're just eliminating words
Mhm.
so that eventually there are no words, and everyone's in a state of unconsciousness. That's the goal,
Yeah.
is that, essentially you're just,
Duck speak. Duck speak.
yeah,
Quack,
yeah,
quack.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So essentially the people are just kind of existing but not contributing in any way or aware of anything
Do
because
you
there's no
think,
language.
do you think this isn't exaggerated?
mm.
Is there any part of this that could not be? That's just too far out there.
That feels impossible to just completely erase language, but I don't know, when you even think about like certain classic books, there are words and language in there that we don't use anymore.
Language
But
changes all the time.
right, it changes, but I wouldn't say we eliminate completely because we're also adding all the time, right? There's new words in the dictionary this year. I can't remember how many new words they put in. That
Yeah, or
felt a little
even the
far.
idea that like you couldn't learn other languages, and you were to have no contact with foreigners, and in some ways, I mean, what's happening in um, the U.S. is about white supremacy and demographics, right? The changing of America, these ideas of replacement theory, and got to learn English. And I mean, there's one legislator that said English was good enough for Jesus, so it's good enough for me. You're like, let's think through that.
Well, and the way the war just goes back and forth.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Has
We're
always
fighting
been at war
here,
with
now we're
Eurasia.
fighting here, now we're fighting here. Now,
yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the way it is.
Yeah.
Mm.
I will say 5 years ago, I probably would have said this idea of like the telescreen and Big Brother's always listening. That's a little far fetched. But now it's like obviously true. Like our devices hear us. Like I don't know where it goes or if it's stored somewhere or if it gets listened to, but they do hear what we're saying and they like calculate that weird algorithm for us. So who knows? Maybe in 5, 10 years, I'll be like, maybe we could get rid of language altogether. Because that one I would have thought was way too far fetched.
Yeah.
That someone's always listening to us.
When
You know,
when I read this book, I was thinking about that part of it, and living near the Smoky Mountains, I just thought I could go somewhere where they couldn't see me.
Mm.
I thought about that a lot. I would just go up, way deep in the mountains, and they couldn't see me. And now that's not really true.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got your heat sensor or whatever. I mean, that's how they search for people who are
Mhm.
missing. They have
Mhm.
drones that can go over and find you. And I was always comforted by that. Now I can't do it anymore. Find me.
We started the simple way, Cynthia. One of my friends, Brooke, she would always, when we were talking about a protest we were going to or something, she would bang on the wall and say, "Is this on?" But I mean, we really did have I mean, we had a lot of the police would know about protests before we were there. They would call us the night before or stuff, and I mean, I think we've had a little bit, but I also feel like our government has a really hard time doing much right. So like, are they really that efficient? That was one of the thoughts that I had.
Mm.
There's a little bit of me that thought like, kind of wished it was like the Wizard of Oz, Cynthia, whereas like in the end, Big Brother is just a little dude behind a screen and like it was all kind of a lot of smoke and mirrors. But I don't know. I go in between that, like when it comes to our administration and government, they're like literally making this list of nonprofits that are enemies of the state right now, right? Like they're literally
Yeah.
doing that. Like so, but how I mean, how much of it is really are they able to do? I don't know. What do you got any thoughts on that, either of you? By the way, Red Letter Christians is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Do not endorse or anyway. Yeah. You got thoughts on that though, Cynthia? Like how like effective our government can really be with all the surveillance and stuff. Katie's a major conspiracy theory, so I know how she
No,
feels.
totally.
Yeah.
She's
I don't
definitely
know.
like, is this on person? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, um, you think it's too big. It's sort of like I'm gonna hide in the Smoky Mountains. It's big, they can't possibly find you. They can't possibly survey all that for one thing, they're not all uh,
Right.
the sharpest knives in the drawer, and
Right.
so they couldn't possibly do it. But
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe. I want to go back to asking you what you both think about whether you can have ideas without words. Because that's the point of getting rid of the language. You can't formulate critical
Right.
thinking if you don't have words for it.
I'm I feel like that's interesting. It's hard to imagine because
Yeah.
you're it's you're born hearing words, but I want to believe,
Take freedom, for example.
yeah.
If there is no word for freedom,
Would you know it existed?
yeah.
Yo, this is deep.
I
Come
think
on, y'all.
so. I think so.
Well, I think of like Helen
Or
Keller,
even
right?
love.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying, huh? Yeah.
Well, they're concepts. So there's so many concepts even in my own mind that I don't know how to put words to, but it doesn't mean they don't exist.
But what happens when you can't get them out there?
They're
Yeah,
just stuck inside my own head.
I think that's like another way of
Yeah.
framing it is like, how do you communicate something if you don't have language for it? And I mean, I think it is like a miracle, the, kind of Helen Keller and her kind of activism. But also one of the things I thought of was, I don't know if you knew this, Cynthia, but when I was in high school, Satara Sheik was deaf, and I learned,
Yeah.
sign language to kind of communicate with her. But one of the people that taught me sign language was deaf and blind. And the idea of like not being able to see or hear was so, I mean, it was wild, but it was also, this woman talked about when she first had a spiritual encounter, it was a vision, even though she's blind and deaf, of God's hand saying, "Come to me, I love you."
Mm-hmm.
And like it was sign language that she could feel because that's how she felt communication. But like I don't know, it's just, but then how do you communicate something without words? I don't know. Yeah, it's a great question. We got just a few minutes left. I want to give you all the last words. So, Katie, any ponderings or questions you want
Well,
to throw out to the
now I'm
group?
going to be pondering this question.
Mm.
It's a great question to think about.
Well, don't stay up too late because you have to play.
Well,
Uh,
even when we were, when we were protesting at Standing Rock, I was just out there briefly, but they had changed the way that they thought about it to where it was not a protest. They were land protectors, and this was a prayerful vigil. So language was really important to them because they didn't want to center the state and the big brother. They wanted to center the land and the creator. And so there was sort of a reframing of everything. And even how they talked to the oil pipeline was the black snake, that was destroying the land and the creation, and like, it's like it really, really fascinating. But some of that, I think comes from a different culture and indigenous, or multiple. I mean, it was one of the largest gathering of nations, of native nations in the U.S. in decades. So I think like even how we think about language is maybe a little different too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, I want both of you before we run out of time. Like, by the way, thanks for we're watching all the there's so much interaction, and y'all can read the chat. But thanks for being a part of the book club and conversation. I wanted to hear both of you like what's on your must-read reading list right now. Um, I asked Cynthia a little bit, Katie, so you can also. Zora Neale Hurston, is she like on some of the banned books? There's probably some
Oh, yeah.
others. Who else? Who else do you either want to make sure the young people and old people together are reading, and what are some um, books we need to be aware of? And also, you can be putting it in the chat too, because we're taking notes for book club.
Mm.
And then
Uh,
Cynthia can talk too. Yeah, go ahead. Either one of y'all, go ahead.
being mortal.
Katie and Cynthia had mentioned James as well.
And
Oh, what an amazing book.
and even better, trees.
Oh, so powerful. He's one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
Yeah, his style is unbelievable. Percival Everett, if people don't know, that's the author.
Yeah, and Paulo Freire, I see that. Like, yeah, those are like
He's an
interesting.
amazing
Yeah.
writer. Yeah. I'm trying to think of all the books I've read this year.
We even got some songs for the playlist. Thanks, y'all. This is fun. This is a little wild, the idea of reading 1984. So thanks all of you who've read it with us. Do either one of you want to say anything about the spirituality? Because it's sort of like very I mean, it's not a central thing, but there is a lot of talk about um even in the appendix of it, like the the idea of God or religion, and even George Orwell seemed pretty complicated. He was in Catholic school as a kid, wasn't sort of atheist, I think, but also like Anglican, had an Anglican funeral. So I don't know. Do you want to say anything about? Is that getting too religious on our 1984 book club? But I mean, I think there's a lot of spiritual themes in it, but do you want to say anything more about that, Cynthia?
Well, I just think it's part of not to give away the ending, but part
Yes.
of the dystopian is really the existence in their lives of beauty, of mystery, those things that we cherish
Mm.
and are expressed in a lot of different ways. Um, so in a way, it's more the absence that makes it important than the fact that it would be in there, as far as, that goes. Um, and, if you're a believer, don't you look at all books through those eyes?
Mm. Katie, any closing thoughts, or why you like fiction so much? I have to say I don't read a lot of fiction, and Katie and I, when we got married, I started reading a little bit more. I read I busted out me some Slaughterhouse-Five. What else I have on? Oh, I did The Water for Elephants and some different books, which was much better than the movie, Cynthia. The book Water for Elephants. Yeah, and Vonnegut and others. Some of your other fiction loves, hon, and why fiction's so important to the world before we close.
Oh my gosh. First of all, you're sitting right below the fiction section. If you just give it a good scan,
Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah, there's a lot of good books on that shelf.
Oh, there's a ton. You got going on up there. Boom.
We got some wonderful books.
Poetry
Got any
section.
Wendell Berry up
Oh,
there?
look, like right there's James, Cynthia. Right
Yep,
there.
James is
Yeah.
front and center.
Right, front and center.
Is there any Wendell Berry up there?
I do not have any Wendell Berry. No one has requested old Wendell.
She doesn't have any of my books either because that's a little pretentious. So yeah, they're all in the back
Although he
stock or
did
something.
ask me to put them on
No,
the
I did
shelf.
not. I did say maybe you should have some local Philadelphia authors, honey. Ah,
You
I
just
will
have
say
somebody-
James Baldwin. James Baldwin is an amazing. Go
yeah.
Tell It on the Mountain.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of some other ones. Of course, I'm drawing a complete blank, but yeah, just come to our library
Yeah, come to our library.
and then you can look at our huge selection.
Hopefully we'll get you up here sometime, Cynthia, and we're all
Yeah,
definitely going to hang out with you when we're in Tennessee next time. So,
Thank
well,
you
any
so much.
closing thoughts? Yeah, it's been a blast, y'all. If you're, not tracking Cynthia Freeman, you should be. She's awesome. She's a great educator down in Tennessee, was one of my high school English teachers, and now a dear friend and supporter. And of course, Katie's my wife and partner in all things up here in Philly, and marriage and life and family. And so any closing thoughts, you guys? Katie,
Thanks.
you first?
Thanks
No?
for your good work.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, y'all, for joining. It's an abrupt stop when we go off here, but and join us next month for Martyrs to the Unspeakable. Jim Douglas be with us at the end of the month. And join us for morning prayer, January 1st. Thanks, Cynthia. Bye.